Hi, I'm Justin Harris, owner of Troponin Nutrition and First Attachment Supplements. I've been a coach in the fitness industry for about 20 years, and over that time I've coached probably over 1,000 athletes, competitors, general health clients, people with all sorts of issues. So one thing that's been a concern in recent years has been that what seems to be an increasing death rate in strength athletes and bodybuilders and fitness enthusiasts. And I think a lot of it stems from the fact that for a long time there wasn't a lot of care or a lot of help from the medical industry in tracking our health. And a lot of the things that athletes do to excel in their sport was done without the care of a physician. And one thing that I'm really happy to see in recent years is that there's been a lot more care in blood work and getting data on your health markers. And specifically from my stance, the most important is kidneys. And that really stems from blood pressure. And so if you look at what we do as athletes, everything we're doing is generally raising blood pressure. Even the sport itself is done with an increased blood pressure. But carrying high amounts of muscle mass, eating large amounts of food, the higher blood volume that comes with the larger muscle mass, all these things increase the pressure in the body. You have basically a long garden hose of blood vessels. And if you don't get to change your garden hose, and so if you double the amount of blood that goes to the garden hose, obviously it's going to be at a higher pressure. And then at the end of that garden hose is a filtering system. You can think of it like a coffee filter. That filtration system is the kidneys. If you have normal blood flow, you have a normal garden hose pumping through those coffee filters, that'll last forever. But if you increase the pressure against that coffee filter, and you can imagine like fire hose spraying at a coffee filter, it's going to rip the filter apart and it's no longer going to filter as well. And that's really the core of the problems in the sport and the problems with athletes dying. Is it all stems from originally typically high blood pressure, which stresses the kidneys, which increases fluid accumulation, which increases demand on the heart. And so the most important thing you can do is keep your blood pressure in check. And then as far as blood work, the most important thing you can test to see that if keeping that blood pressure in check is keeping your kidneys healthy is check your kidneys. Now the problem with that is that the traditional markers for kidney health are BUN, blood urea nitrogen, which is elevated when you eat a high protein diet. And so that's already going to be artificially elevated. Creatinine, which is related to muscle mass, it's a byproduct, like a waste product of muscle mass. So when you have more muscle mass, your creatinine levels are going to be higher. So that's already artificially elevated. And then glomerular filtration rate, GFR, which we measure eGFR, which is the estimated filtration rate. And that estimation is a calculation that uses creatinine and an assumption that you have a standardized level of muscle mass, which obviously isn't the case. So we have this whole system that to track our health, all of the markers are artificially elevated or inaccurate, and then we use those artificially elevated numbers with an estimated formula that is doubly inaccurate to get a glomerular filtration rate. So what I recommend with athletes is you're going to have to get that because that's a standard, those are the standard tests for kidney function, but I like to get cystatin tested, which is less dependent on creatinine, and it gives you a better estimated true filtration rate of the kidneys. So what do you do if your blood work shows poor kidney function? Well, the important thing is to understand how all this works and what the values actually mean and what you need to do to correct them, because these things they're not a death sentence, and that's been the problem in the past, is that athletes are afraid to get blood work because they think if they get something wrong on their blood work, it means they have to stop being an athlete, which isn't the case. Quite the opposite. If you see things wrong in your blood work and you take action, that's going to allow you to extend your life as an athlete. And so if you do get an elevated kidney values, you need to understand, first of all, what's going on. Low BUN is a marker for anabolism. So low BUN is the medical definition of building muscle. That's not exactly true because our BUN is always going to be artificially elevated because of a high protein diet. So if you see an elevated BUN and you're eating a high protein diet, right away you know that that's likely the cause. If you have elevated creatinine and you have high muscle mass, they're going to be correlated, but you still don't want that creatinine increasing over time. You want it to be static. And so if you see that level high, there's a couple things you can do. Step one, treat your blood pressure. Get your blood pressure in a good range. And what I like to use is either ACE inhibitors, angiotensin converting enzyme, or ARBs, and either of those are very good first steps for bringing your blood pressure down. What I used to hear a lot is athletes somehow correlated blood pressure with strength. Like they thought if their blood pressure was high, it meant they were going to be stronger. That's not the case at all. And even more so, using products that work through the angiotensin system can actually increase blood flow to the microvasculature, which as an athlete you want, because blood flow is everything. How well you can remove waste products, bring nutrients to the muscle, remove waste from the muscle, and circulate the blood system. So an ACE inhibitor or an ARB can help increase blood flow and actually improve performance. A next step after that would potentially be like a calcium channel blocker, like an amlodipine. But really, for most athletes, getting on an ACE inhibitor or an ARB right out of the gate is going to keep their blood pressure controlled and keep their kidneys healthy. So everyone out there, get your blood work done. Work with a good medical professional. Get treatment for if your blood pressure is elevated, get treatment to get your blood pressure down. Work with someone who understands the intricacies of the blood work. You're probably going to want to work with someone who actually works with athletes and understands the variations that we'll have in our blood work that may or may not be actually symptoms of an illness or as opposed to just symptoms of high muscle mass.